Do I hear a lawnmower?
We can never escape the lawnmower guy, Melissa.
Do you hear that?
Yes. I think he's very...
Yeah, he's far away.
He's far away.
We're good for the moment.
That's right. Otherwise, I'll have to pause and cut that out. So, hey, Melissa, how are you?
Doing great.
Yeah, here we are, another episode. We are on, I think, 19.
Wow.
Yeah. I heard we have to get to like 70 before we become viral.
We'll test that theory.
That's right. We'll test it. Yeah, we're going to get to a point where we just grow subscribers and then we can just, retire. So. No, well, today, Melissa, we are talking about something that I think is, again, super important. I think we've been starting this series since February with Heart Month. We've talked about diabetes. We talked about heart disease. Today, focusing on cholesterol. Mm-hmm. And cholesterol, believe it or not, it's just so controversial, except I don't think it has to be.
No, there's really no controversy when you look at the facts.
Correct.
The studies, it just kind of spells it out for you.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we'll be talking about today, right? Cholesterol, what is it? Why do we make it? Why is it important? Its role in heart disease and stroke. We'll be talking about what the numbers actually mean. So when your doctor tells you, hey, this is your total cholesterol, good cholesterol, black cholesterol, essentially a very basic overview of what they mean. We will talk sometime on medication, which I think is where the controversy happens. Yeah. And then a big focus on lifestyle, because that's kind of the key at the end. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's start with cholesterol. There's so much paid attention, so much information about the cholesterol, but cholesterol actually is something that the body actually makes.
Right. It's something that we need, and our body makes what we need. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we'll end up getting too much if we're not following a good, healthy diet or eating certain things that can, increase our cholesterol. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're exactly right. Cholesterol is important in things like sex hormone, right? So testosterone and estrogen and all these things your body needs. It's important for cell walls, and it's important for cell repair. So one of the big things we see with cholesterol is its job to help fix the lining of your blood vessels. Right? Mm-hmm. If your blood vessel has damage, cholesterol has gone there to kind of fix it and repair it, because you don't want a leak in your boat. Mm-hmm. Right? Your body's like, I'd rather not leak blood to death. So we have cholesterol there. But you're right. Too much issues and too much repair, you'll look like Jackson roads. No offense, Jackson. But there's a reason people get nervous driving there, because they're popping tires and breaking things, and then they have to pay a high car tag. I don't know how we got in the car. We're not talking about Jackson. But exactly. So that's kind of the important parts of cholesterol. But you're exactly right. When we have too much cholesterol particles, meaning too much repair, that's where things like heart disease and stroke and all these things start coming into play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just takes too much of a good thing sometimes to start to cause problems. And those problems don't develop overnight. It's a very long, gradual process. So that's one good thing. There is plenty of time to prevent some of that. So
yeah, exactly. And even that's, I think, what our goal here is to point out is you don't have to be heart attack, stroke in your 60s, because a lot of guys do it. This is things that we can prevent now, because you're exactly right now. You have things going on with blood vessel and blood vessel inflammation and stuff like that. And how much of that equals how much issues you'll have further along in life, right? So, well, Melissa, as we dig into this, let's talk a little bit about total cholesterol. So when somebody pulls up their cholesterol report and they see total cholesterol, what exactly is that?
Well, it's your total cholesterol.
That's in the name. It's not a trick question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it contains like good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, some other stuff in between. And that essentially is right, the amount of cholesterol that we can detect in the blood at any time. It's not affected by fasting. Meaning like, back in the day we thought that, hey, we have to be fasting to get an accurate cholesterol. Actually, whether you eat something or you don't, the total cholesterol numbers actually don't move a whole lot. So that's essentially that. Now, then moving on, they'll see a number called HDL. Now, Melissa, what is HDL?
I like to explain it. We call that one the good cholesterol, but I like to explain it. It's good because when it's working right, it kind of acts like a sponge to move bad cholesterol out. That's just kind of a simple way that I've heard it explained and seems to, be an easy way to picture it.
Exactly. Yeah, and when patients see things like, hey, my good cholesterol is high, that actually is a good marker, right? That it points to that the blood vessels are healthy. They're doing what it needs to be. They're doing their job. And so for a guide, if you'll see a lot of papers say that, hey, guys need to be above 40, women need to be above 50. There is a little bit of maybe disease process we see in people with very low good cholesterol. They have higher rates of heart disease. And that kind of makes sense. Like if your vessels aren't repairing right because the good cholesterol is really low, then yeah, we're going to have some issues with that. But overall, the things that affect good cholesterol a lot, healthy fats, right? Your fishes, your avocados, and exercise. Exercise seems to affect good cholesterol in a good way. So the more exercise you do, specifically the stuff that gets your heart pumping, the better the good cholesterol goes. All right. Now, Melissa, let's go to triglycerides. Triglycerides are a little funny, but what exactly are they?
So yeah, a type of cholesterol that moves sugar molecules. Triglycerides, 3 sugar molecules. But yeah, and that one is the one that, we'll see elevated when someone's, eating a lot more processed foods or a lot of alcohol or different things like that, that it's going to have more simple sugars. We'll see that go up.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So triglycerides, exactly. It's a storage form for your body to move fatty acids and sugars along. So, right, triglycerides. It's scientists, we aren't that.
They didn't get that creative. That's saying it like it is.
That's right. The other day, I think I was reading something about a dinosaur. I think there was a dinosaur called like Big Head Dinosaur. I'm like, who named this thing? But it's just, right, we scientists, we're not that creative. Probably that's why we're in science. But right, that's his job. So yeah, if you come to your doctor and you're not fasting, the triglycerides will be high, right? Because you just ate a bunch of food. The body's moving energy around. Triglycerides are usually high. The way I look at it is like if you eat something, your body has to either burn it, store it, or poop it out. So obviously things that affect burning it, exercise, muscle mass. But things that affect storage is usually like sugar. Sugar is stored a lot because we don't need that much. So when it gets stored, if the liver is full, they start trying to move triglycerides out to either to fat, the fat cells and stuff like that. So when triglycerides are high, you'll often see it in diabetics. You'll see it in people with what we call metabolic syndrome. Usually they will have the beer gut dad bod or that weight in the center, which I refuse to have. But yes, usually that's telling you that, hey, metabolically, there are stuff going on with the body. You're not burning enough. You're going to be storing a lot. So triglycerides, while fixing it doesn't help with heart disease. Like me starting a medication to fix triglycerides doesn't stop any more heart disease. It's like a fever. It's like it tells you there's an infection going on. But if you treat the fever with Tylenol ibuprofen, sure, you'll feel better, but it doesn't actually affect the infection. So triglycerides is the same thing. It's just a warning sign. It's telling you something's going on. We need to pay attention and start reversing course.
Yeah.
Now, Melissa, the bad cholesterol. A lot of controversy on old LDL.
LDL. Yeah. It's bad because it can stick to the arteries, and that's what does ultimately contribute to that buildup in the artery wall and the plaques that eventually lead to heart attack, stroke, and other cardiovascular disease. So, I think I don't think it was a controversy until I don't know, it's been in the past few years that there's been more, more things that we see online that argue, oh, your LDL doesn't really matter. And if your doctor's telling you that, you probably need to maybe get another opinion, just because there is a direct correlation to LDL and the buildup of plaque and risk for cardiovascular disease.
Correct.
You can't have one without the other.
Exactly. And I think I think the confusion with LDL all started when people weren't quite sure who the population is, right? So if you have had a heart attack or a stroke, so we are trying to prevent the second one. So this is called secondary prevention. So we're trying to stop you from having another one. The correlation with how high your bad cholesterol is and recurrent rate of heart disease is pretty well established. It's there. It's we don't need to argue and hash that out. In the primary prevention series, I think that's where some of the confusion was. And people who've never had a heart attack, never had a stroke, never had an aneurysm, never had blockage in their arteries and legs, how do you prevent the first one? The correlation is not maybe as strong, but it's still there. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, well, there's no correlation. There's still correlation, but maybe not as strong. And maybe, we can get into all the weeds of how that looks, but all that, we've had enough studies that show that in general, maybe not 100%. Of course, there's always a guy who survived a car accident because he didn't wear a seatbelt. Mm-hmm. But by and large, seatbelts work. And there's
the lawnmower is right behind you.
I can see your eyes. It's like following the guy behind me. I'm going to try to see if I can.
He's going the other way now.
Oh, good. He probably walks by and is like, oh no, I'm on the audio. But right, in general, majority of the time, LDL, how high it goes is linked with risk of heart disease. Maybe not in 5 years. Mm-hmm. So some of the shorter studies, 4 and 5 years, maybe not that clear because it's short, but 10 years, I can hear it again. He's getting louder. Mm-hmm. We're just, you know what, Melissa, I tried to be professional. I got my our headgear, our mics. We just need a studio.
We just can't prevent the lawnmower.
That's right. Because it's springtime now. Mm-hmm. It feels amazing outside.
Yeah. Perfect spring day.
Perfect. That's right. But right, back to it. Right. There is a link. Mm-hmm. And we can prove it by diet. When people eat a lot of, more fruits and vegetables, healthier, their numbers look better. When they're eating out a lot, eating a lot of fast food, drinking alcohol, those things start going in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is still probably the biggest part of primary prevention is lifestyle changes. Mm-hmm. That always comes first. And then depending on other risk factors and those cholesterol numbers, then, you kind of have that conversation, shared decision making about whether medication could reduce that longer term risk.
Yeah. And I like how you put that, Melissa. Right. We're going to put this to bed because we're going to focus a lot on the primary prevention, but secondary, if you've had a heart attack, stroke, like peripheral arteries, so you'll have a clot in your leg before, not like a DVT where you like in an airplane, but I had to go to the doctor, I had to go and pop a stent, open the arteries from my feet because my foot was dying. Mm-hmm. Aneurysm, we've proven beyond a doubt, the cholesterol medicine not just makes your numbers look better, but it will make you live longer, mm-hmm. right? And it will help your quality of life. So those two things have been proven over and over. For the other part, and it's exactly like I said, there needs to be a conversation, mm-hmm. right? Because we want to know what's important to you too. Like some people are ready for a lifestyle. They're ready to engage. Some people are not. Mm-hmm. Zero interest at all. And so we need to figure out what we want to do because at the end of the day, I tell people it's the difference between living to 65. We have enough technology that we can get you to 65, mm-hmm. right? But it's to get you to 65 on maybe 1 or 2 medications, mm-hmm. Where you're still fully independent, you're still going to baseball games and walking up down football stadiums and enjoying life, or get you to 65 on 8 medicines, mm-hmm. right? And you get shortness of breath walking to your mailbox. You can't go to your kid's graduation because you can't walk up the stairs. Like these are things that it's more than just numbers that we're looking at. We're looking at how was your life going to be when you're 60 or late 50s, or even nowadays, 40.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that outcome, that picture of a 65-year-old is changing more and more over the years just because our lifestyle is so different. And so if we do nothing, we eat the standard American diet, we sit at our desk all day, we're going to be one of those people that end up on one med after another because we're not doing anything else. Mm-hmm. And then you throw say some family history and some different things like that. And, those odds are even further stacked against you. Mm-hmm. But, making some lifestyle changes can be a big part in just reducing that risk initially. If you do end up on a medication or 2, you'll probably still have a pretty good quality of life. Mm-hmm, you'll, mm-hmm. Be strong and active and all the things that we want as we age. Mm-hmm. So they go hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly. And Melissa, it's just like you said, cholesterol is just a piece of the puzzle. You know, I was listening to some Harvard physicians talk about cholesterol and just kind of talk about how we think about it. Cholesterol is not the end all be all, right? And I think that gets confused too. Is like people get so hyper focused, like my cholesterol is great. I just still smoke and drink, and I, you know, those things, they all play a role. So what we know, based on most of the studies coming out of the Women's Initiative study, is just that if we keep our weight under control, if we eat relatively healthy, if we exercise regularly, just brisk walking like 30 minutes, you know, a couple of times a week, if we don't smoke, if we keep our sleep well and keep our stress well controlled, I mean, based on their numbers, it's like 80% reduction in heart attacks, 90% reduction in diabetes, 50% reduction in stroke, and like 30% minimal reduction in cancer. Because there's so many, they're all linked together. And so again, when we talk about, and we'll talk about in a minute, medication, that's again just one piece of the tool that we have.
Right.
You can't neglect the other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. The people that are having, you know, say a massive heart attack in their 50s or, you know, a stroke, you know, by 60 or whatever, there's usually more than one factor. It's not usually just because they had high cholesterol for the past 10 years.
Correct.
You know, a lot of times they're diabetic. Maybe they smoked for many years. Maybe there's a pretty strong family history. There's all these different things that can also contribute to that. Now, yeah, you'll get the one-off that has like a random heart attack and maybe they didn't really have any known risk factors, but for the most part, the people that do have events early in life have a lot of risk factors stacked up. And yeah, treating all of those or preventing all of those, it comes down to pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. It's like what your mom told you, right? Like, stop eating those sweets and candy, go outside and play, go to bed on time as a little kid, you know. But essentially, it's just everything that we've been told as kids, we just got to do as adults.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Melissa, now the controversy. Cholesterol medication. I guess we'll just focus on two because data-wise, there's two that have the biggest amount of data. Yes, niacin can make your numbers look better. Yes, fenofibrate, which some people take for their triglycerides, can make your numbers look better. But they don't really have that much of an effect on heart attack and stroke, which is what we're looking at. Yeah, we can make numbers look some type of way all day long, but if people are still having heart attack and strokes with no difference, we want to find medications that do that. And the main one right now is the statins.
Yes. And it has become a dirty word. That's like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But you're right. You know, there are things out there that can change your numbers, you know, even people selling supplements or, can sell you this package of stuff that will get your numbers headed in a different direction maybe. And maybe it does, change, a small percentage. But the outcome trials and evidence are just not there. Correct. And a lot of these things have been studied. There were lots of studies with niacin and other things before or during the time when statins came about, trying to decide which actually showed different outcomes. And really the statins always came out on top as far as reducing those, cardiovascular events, especially the secondary prevention.
Yeah. And if you look at most of the studies, right, the statins, what they do is it's about a 30% relative risk reduction. So what I mean by that is, let's say two people had a heart attack, right? And we're trying to stop the second one. One person takes the cholesterol medicine, one person doesn't. And they live their life and keep it on. The person who takes it has a 30% less chance of having a second heart attack than the first one, which is pretty big. You think about what happens after a heart attack. Okay, you got to go to the hospital. You got to get a stent put in. If you're lucky. If you die, then obviously there it goes, right? You get the stent. If it doesn't work, you got to get bypassed. You got to open your chest up. You have to, do all this surgery. Then you have months and months of cardiac rehab, hundreds of thousands of dollars later. I mean, if you can cut that by 30%, you're talking about significant improvement in future outcomes.
Yeah, and just imagine your quality of life difference, after having one heart attack, let alone another one. You've probably got significant damage to your heart. You've got, chronic congestive heart failure, all different things that are going to limit your quality of life in the long run.
Correct. And all able to be cut with a $4 pill.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's where it comes. Like,
that's right.
There's been this, big pharma thing in the past, several years that, if your doctor recommends a statin, they're just in, the pockets of big pharma and da-da-da-da-da. Mm-hmm. We don't get anything from big pharma.
That's right.
Especially with statins.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it has been years since all the statins are generic.
Correct.
I think what people see is drug companies just telling doctors, begging doctors to prescribe their medication. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It just doesn't work like that.
Correct.
And even if we put every single person we ever saw on a statin,
right,
we don't get anything for that.
Right.
We don't get a dime.
Correct.
So it's not there's no conspiracy.
Yes, exactly.
Just to clear the air right there.
Melissa, we made eye contact and I knew exactly which direction you were going. No, yeah. Okay. All right. You're right. There's plenty of things with pharma, right? And plenty of things with incentives and stuff like that we could talk about on another thing. But from this standpoint in cholesterol medicine, it would be in pharma's interest and hospital's interest for you to have a heart attack and get sick. Mm-hmm. From a payment standpoint, right? Because think about it. We just said $100,000 right now. So right now in the average cost for a hospital stay with stent and stuff like that in the United States is between $150,000 and $450,000. Okay, how many people do we have to put on a statin at $4 a month to ever get to one of those events? Mm-hmm. Right? We're talking about stents that cost like $23,000, which is just mind-boggling. Or we can prevent it with a $4 drug. So if I was a drug company, I would rather you be, and I want to make a lot of money. I wouldn't even waste research money in statins anymore. There's not enough money in that area when you look at profit margin, right? Yeah, this is how much it costs to make the drug. This is how much I'm selling it for. Versus me making a $13 metal stent and selling it for $23,000. It just doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint. So, and from a physician standpoint, we don't get kickbacks. It's not like
your drug companies will send reps out with lunch, which we don't accept any drug reps here. But right. For the general population, your doctor may get fed lunch by a drug company here or there when they're introducing a new medication, one that's not generic. And like I said, there have been no statins that are brand name. I guess when I was first out of school in 2009, Crestor was still brand name. Right. But now, since it's been generic, you're not going to see drug reps for Crestor. That's not where they're making money. Yeah. They're making money on your Ozempic. Those are the drug reps that are out there right now.
Yeah, exactly right. And so, that one, I could see somebody's like, well, they want to put everybody on Ozempic because they're making a lot. Yes, they can. In their trials, they want everyone on Ozempic because they can make insane amounts of money on that. But they will not make that. Even they put the whole state of Mississippi, so 3 million people, man, woman, child, on a $4 statin. It is not equivalent to what they can make on Ozempic.
And nobody has any trouble taking Ozempic. They're yeah.
Well, and exactly right. And really when it comes to, statin, and we won't break down the high intensity, low intensity, the key is actually just adherence. Back in the day, we would adjust statins to try to treat for certain numbers. That practice has kind of gone out because of the data that's coming out. The key, though, is whenever you're written one, whether it's Crestor or Lipitor or whatever, you just have to stay on it. Mm-hmm. Which I know it's harder. And I've had this week, actually, I think it's just this week. Everybody keeps coming in and just keeps saying, I can't remember to take my medication. Mm-hmm. Which, we want to be polite. But, we just, I don't know, put it next to your toothbrush.
Yeah.
Set an alarm on the phone. Whatever I understand. Even taking allergy medicine and stuff. I understand that. But if you want, it's not going to work sitting on your counter or in your luggage. Mm-hmm. It has to be in your mouth and in your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's plenty of ways to remember, how do you remember to brush your teeth or make your coffee or whatever? Just put it next to something that you do every single day or carry it, in your bag or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and Melissa, I have a lot of patients too with the statin, so they have side effects. Yeah, and we'll say right now, there's no drug out there that has zero side effects, right? So that is definitely there. But how much of it is attributed to statins and how much of it is not actually can be debated. I would say, I think you were telling me this, like in our practice, I would agree. Like it feels like 20% of people who take statins can't take it.
Yeah. When, during like actual placebo trials and things like that, the amount of side effects that were reported, especially the myalgias, the muscle aches, about 5%. But probably in real world scenario, it's higher because people Google and, every little ache or pain that they feel, they, immediately think it's the statin.
Yeah.
And it may not always be. So, and that's another thing. If you experience side effects, don't just stop it, and don't tell your doctor.
Yeah.
You can tell your doctor if your doctor says, let's stop it for a couple weeks, kind of monitor your symptoms. If your symptoms resolve, we may try you again on a different dose or a different statin just to see, because some people do better with one versus another or just different dosing regimen, things like that. If it happens again after switching the medication, then may have to go a different route. But for a lot of people, either the change in dose or just realizing that when I was off the medicine, I didn't feel any better. I just have like some soreness or whatever. A lot of times most people can actually take these medications without any problem.
Yeah, exactly right. I think the trial that you're mentioning, exactly, they brought 200 people. They all had muscle aches with statins. We're about to stop the medicine because of it. They gave half of them real statins, gave half of them a sugar pill and call it statin. Muscle aches were equal in both groups. And we call that the nocebo effect. So nocebo means I know I'm going to have a side effect. Therefore, when I take it, it's like a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy thing. And I think it's always so interesting. It's one of those, like, I don't know if the internet has been good or bad because it happens, right? A lot of times I'll tell people all the time, like, we used to have a attending that would ask patients because we were trying to figure out if this is really happening or not. And so somebody would be like, I read on the side effect profile that I'm supposed to have, chest pain and leg, achiness and stuff like that. I just distinctly remember one, he's like, oh, yeah, did you see on there it says your eyes itch when you pee? And he's like, my eyes do itch when I pee. It's one of those like, what? But how powerful, and I think we had an episode talking about placebo, like how powerful the brain is to thinking things could happen is everywhere. I mean, it's in everything. And so statins are not immune to that. There's a lot of bad rep about memory and heart disease. And a lot of times how patients say, I won't take one because I had one friend who took one time. And after he took it, he had a heart attack. And you're like, oh, we can't, that's not science.
Yeah, right. He probably had a lot of other risk factors. There was a reason he needed to be on cholesterol medicine. His cholesterol could have been, really bad for a long time. And that is what, led to the heart attack.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So, taking into account those things, just kind of experience of others, don't think that all that is going to happen to you. Yeah.
Perfect. Which I was going to bring out the PCSK9 inhibitors, but we won't touch base on that because that is only targeted for a very specific group of people. And the data on that is still in the phase that it can make your numbers look better, but we don't know if it makes you live any longer kind of data. But Melissa, let's focus a little bit on food.
Okay.
Right. So for the patient that says, like I had a patient the other day, he says, Doc, you keep telling me about my statin. So this guy had already had heart attacks. So we are on secondary. So the data is there. And he's like, you keep telling me about taking my medication, but what about food? What can I eat to make it better? And then I asked him, like, are you going to change what you eat? He said, no. Okay. Then don't pass go. We're not collecting $200. You got to take the medication if that's where you are. But if you really want, like, you know what? I hear you about the food and the exercise and the tobacco and the alcohol. And I'm willing to do something about it. Let's start with food. What kind of food plan can help lower cholesterol?
Yeah. So a lot of the food plans that we've talked about a lot of different times, for things like diabetes and other things like that, also good for cholesterol. So things like, the DASH diet, the Mediterranean diet, vegetarian or plant-based. Basically, though, in whatever eating pattern you have, typically want least amount of processed foods, kind of closest to their most natural form. So you're getting plenty of fiber from plants. We want to reduce the amount of high fat, particularly the saturated fats. And so that usually, high fat dairy, the fattier meats, certain fried foods, depending on how they're prepared. So things like that. So reducing those high fat foods, increasing the high fiber foods, increasing some healthy fats. Sometimes the avocados, the nuts and seeds, things like that can help our overall good, healthy fat balance. But yeah, I think kind of some of the big names like the Mediterranean, the DASH, vegetarian, have a pretty good, if you're following those, you're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, exactly right. So, for people who want to look up one that need that, like I just need to know what to eat, morning, breakfast, night, right? Mediterranean, pretty well studied, really good heart data. The kind of key points with Mediterranean, right? Lots of fruits and vegetables, very little sugar and processed food, essentially none. It's trying to eat food in the form that it was made. Lots of healthy fats, which is really, really important. There was a trend for a while of zero fat, for low fat on everything, and that trend did not turn out well because what happened is then we just substitute sugar for fat and we're worse off. But eating lots of healthy fats like avocados, seeds, that type of diet, that type of eating, what it does is it actually lowers the inflammation in the bloodstream. You can actually check it in the blood. High sensitive CRP and C, it's lower. Obviously, inflammation gets lower. Vessel damage is lower, less cholesterol plaque buildup. That's essentially a really, really good key. And if you're not at that stage where you want to invest in that type, the rule of thumb is just taking away a lot of the processed foods, specifically liquid sugar. Like there is no benefit to Coke and Sprite and all those things. A lot of health harms. And adding more plants. That usually is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Exercise, Melissa. What about that?
Yeah, exercise, like you said, that steady aerobic exercise or anything that kind of gets your heart rate up helps those HDL numbers, things like that. But for most adults, about 150 minutes a week is a good place to aim. And that can be divided up however you want to. For some people, it's 5 30-minute sessions. For other people, little 10-minute increments. It still counts as long as it averages out to about 150 minutes a week.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those, you don't have to go to a gym for 2 hours to get that done.
Right.
You can do it, I know you work out early in the morning, which is amazing. I don't know how you do it, Melissa, 4:30. But yeah, even the last person we interviewed last week, she had a kettlebell at her work, and she just, on her 15-minute break, she goes walking. She gets to a 15-minute break. She walks for the whole 15 minutes. That's your 30. So there are ways to do it. And the health benefits of exercise, more than just weight loss, but it will change your body composition. It will help with that central weight, which is a really big predictor of bad things to happen. So that beer gut belly kind of issue. Even if the weight number doesn't go down, if that starts to shrink, the clothes starts to fit better, the health benefits will definitely be there.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Melissa, any final thoughts on our cholesterol segment?
I think, definitely, having open conversations with your provider is a good place to start. Kind of weighing all your risk factors, for somebody who just has like a moderately elevated cholesterol, but no other risk factors. That may be more a matter of just really focusing on those lifestyle changes to reduce your overall risk. If you have multiple risk factors and your doctor suggests a statin, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
And it's not your doctor trying to make extra money or, anything like that. It is just to reduce your risk and so that you can have a long, healthy life. So we do not have an agenda.
That's right. Yeah, sometimes you look at social media like there's no hope for mankind. They're all like, you're all out to get me. I'm like, no, we're not. Exactly. That's all we care about. And that's what we look at, especially here at Blue Hills Baptist, is can I make your quality of life better? And here's the law.
It's a weed eater now.
Oh, he's doing a good job. I'm not gonna, so correct. Well, Melissa, I don't know what we were talking about. you have anything you want to talk about next week?
I think we talked about kind of some of the five things that we hear on a regular basis. So common concerns like, why am I so tired? I don't eat that much. Why am I gaining weight? All those different things that we hear just on a regular basis. We'll probably do one on that.
Perfect. That would be actually really fun. So if people have questions, put it on our Facebook page, put it in the comment section, and we'll pick the top 5 and then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then, of course, we have our Reels series. So don't forget our Reels, try new foods. If this podcast is helpful, smash like, subscribe, share.
All the things.
All the things. Yes. All right, Melissa. Well, I'll see you next week.
All right.